Hi, my name is Dorian Liberty, and the night I lost everything, I didn't scream, I didn't beg, I didn't tell them about the multi-million-dollar tech company I secretly built or the mountain estate they'd never see. My father called me a disappointment and threw me out like yesterday's trash. My wife, Nika, she laughed in my face, then walked out with her personal trainer. They thought I was broken. But here's what they didn't know. I wasn't the failure they believed I was. I was the storm they never saw coming. Have you ever wondered what happens when the people who claim to love you show their true faces? When your own family treats you like a stranger? This is the story of how silence became my most powerful weapon, and how those who betrayed me learned that underestimating someone can be the biggest mistake of their lives. Picture this. Denver, Colorado, October 2023. The Liberty family mansion sits on 5 acres of pristine land, all marble floors and crystal chandeliers. But that night, the elegance felt suffocating. I walked into the dining room where my father, Thomas, sat at the head of our mahogany table. My younger brother, Zachary, was there too, wearing that smug expression I'd grown to hate. The air was thick with tension and expensive cologne. "Dorian," my father said, not even looking up from his steak, "sit down. We need to discuss your future at Liberty Enterprises." I knew that tone. Cold, final, like he was about to fire a janitor, not his own son. The board voted unanimously. Your services are no longer required, effective immediately. The words hit like ice water. 20 years of my life poured into that company. 20 years of late nights, missed holidays, sacrificed relationships. And this is how it ended. With a family dinner announcement? Zachary couldn't hide his satisfaction. "Don't take it personally, bro. Some people just aren't cut out for leadership." But the real knife came when Nika walked into the room. My wife of 7 years stood there in a designer dress I'd bought her, holding an envelope that looked way too official. "Dorian, honey," she said, her voice dripping with fake sympathy, "I think it's time we both moved on." She tossed the envelope onto my plate, right into my mashed potatoes. Divorce papers. Her signature already there. Neat and decisive. "I've been thinking about this for months," she continued. "You've been so distant, so focused on your little tech projects that go nowhere. Marcus understands me in ways you never could." Marcus, her personal trainer, the guy I'd been paying to keep my wife in shape, was apparently keeping her in other ways too. I should have exploded. Should have thrown my chair across the room, demanded answers, fought for my marriage, my job, my dignity. That's what they expected. That's what they wanted. Drama they could use to justify their betrayal. Instead, I did something that shocked them all. I smiled. Not a bitter smile, not a sarcastic one. A genuine calm smile that made them all shift uncomfortably in their seats. "Thank you," I said quietly, standing up and straightening my tie. "For the clarity." I picked up the divorce papers, folded them neatly, and slipped them into my jacket pocket. Then I walked to the door, paused, and turned back one last time. "You know what's interesting about underestimating people?" I said, my voice steady as stone. "Sometimes you discover you never really knew them at all." And with that, I walked out into the Colorado night. The autumn air was crisp, full of possibilities they couldn't imagine. Here's what none of them knew. While they were playing their little power games, I'd been building something extraordinary. For the past 5 years, while pretending to be their disappointment, I'd been developing revolutionary AI software through a shell company called Pinnacle Dynamics. My true net worth, try $37 million. And that mountain estate in Aspen, it wasn't a dream. It was deeded in my name, completely hidden from everyone, including Nika. But I wasn't ready to reveal any of that. Not yet. Sometimes the most powerful move is the one nobody sees coming. And I had plans. Plans that would make this night look like child's play. As I drove away from that mansion for what I knew would be the last time, I wasn't thinking about revenge. I was thinking about justice. There's a difference, and they were about to learn it.
3 days. That's how long it took for their world to start cracking. I'd vanished completely. Phone off, email accounts deactivated, social media profiles deleted. As far as anyone knew, Dorian Liberty had disappeared into thin air. But I wasn't hiding. I was orchestrating. From my mountain estate in Aspen, I watched it all unfold through carefully planted sources and security feeds I'd installed years ago. The house was everything they'd never give me credit for. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Rocky Mountains, a state-of-the-art home office, and most importantly, complete privacy. My trusted friend and business partner, Scarlett Mitchell, arrived on day 2 with a briefcase full of documents and a smile that could cut glass. "They're panicking," she said, settling into the leather chair across from my desk. "Liberty Enterprises lost 3 major contracts yesterday. Turns out your little tech projects were holding that company together." The irony was delicious. For years, I'd been developing proprietary software that automated their entire logistics system. The code was mine, registered under my personal patents and licensed to Liberty Enterprises on a month-to-month basis, a detail buried so deep in legal paperwork that nobody bothered to read it. When I disappeared, so did the licensing agreement. Scarlett pulled out her tablet, showing me surveillance footage from Liberty Enterprises' main office. There was my father, pacing behind his desk like a caged animal. Zachary sat across from him, no longer smug, frantically typing on his laptop. "The Hartman Industries deal fell through this morning. Without your logistics software, they can't guarantee delivery schedules. Thomas is hemorrhaging money by the hour." But the best part? They still had no idea where any of it was coming from. Meanwhile, Nika was having her own crisis. Through mutual friends, I learned that she'd already moved in with Marcus, flaunting their relationship across social media. But Marcus, it turned out, had expensive tastes and even more expensive debts. Debts he'd assumed his new girlfriend could cover, thanks to her inevitable divorce settlement. What Marcus didn't know was that I'd been tracking every penny of our joint accounts for months. The prenup Nika had laughed at during our engagement, it was ironclad. She'd get exactly what she brought into the marriage, her personal belongings, and about $12,000 in savings. The real estate, the investments, the business interests, all mine, all protected, all completely legal. "There's something else," Scarlett said, her expression turning serious. "Your grandfather called. Jarn Liberty, 93 years old, sharp as a blade, and the only member of my family who'd ever truly understood me. He'd built Liberty Enterprises from nothing in the 1960s, and he'd been watching his sons and grandsons slowly destroy his legacy. He wants to see you, says it's time you knew about something he's kept hidden for 30 years. That night, I drove down to Grandpa John's modest cabin outside Boulder. The place was exactly as I remembered. Warm wood, handmade furniture, and walls covered with photos of our family's better days.
He was waiting on the porch, wrapped in his old military blanket, eyes still bright with intelligence. "Figured you'd show up eventually," he said, gesturing for me to sit beside him. "Question is, are you ready to finish what I started?" He handed me a manila envelope, thick with documents I'd never seen before. "Your father thinks he owns Liberty Enterprises," Grandpa John said quietly, "but he's wrong. The real controlling interest has always been held in trust, and that trust, Dorian, has conditions." My hands shook as I read through the papers. Grandpa John had been planning for this moment for decades. If Liberty Enterprises ever faced significant financial losses due to management incompetence, or if the family structure became irreparably damaged by betrayal, controlling interest would automatically transfer to his chosen successor. Me! "But there's more," he continued, pulling out another document. I know about Pinnacle Dynamics. Been watching your success from the beginning. Proud of what you built in the shadows while they treated you like dirt. The second document made my breath catch. It was a merger proposal, already drafted, already approved by a board I'd never heard of. Pinnacle Dynamics would acquire Liberty Enterprises, but only when specific conditions were met. Those conditions had been met the moment Thomas fired me and Nika filed for divorce. The betrayal clause, Grandpa John explained. I added it after watching what your uncle did to your aunt back in '89. Family business requires family loyalty. When that breaks down, the business should go to someone who understands both honor and strategy. I stared at the papers, then at my grandfather's weathered face. Why didn't you ever tell me? He smiled, the same smile I remembered from childhood fishing trips. Because you needed to become the man who could handle this responsibility. The boy they threw out 3 days ago couldn't have done what comes next, but the man sitting here right now, he can reshape everything. As I drove back up the mountain that night, everything felt different. The weight of possibility, of justice delayed but not denied. Tomorrow they'd wake up in their comfortable beds, still believing they'd won. They had no idea the game had changed completely. But first, I needed to make one more stop. There was someone else who deserved to know that their betrayal hadn't been unnoticed.
The call came at exactly 9:15 a.m. on a Tuesday. I was sitting in my home office, watching the sunrise paint the mountain peaks gold, when my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. Is this Dorian Liberty? The voice was professional, urgent. Depends who's asking. This is Patricia Chen from Channel 7 News. We're running a story about Liberty Enterprises' recent financial troubles, and we'd like your comment on the hostile takeover. I almost laughed. Hostile takeover? According to our sources, an unknown corporation called Pinnacle Dynamics has acquired controlling interest in Liberty Enterprises. The acquisition became effective yesterday when your family couldn't meet their debt obligations. We understand you were recently separated from the company? Beautiful. It had happened faster than even Scarlett predicted. No comment, I said, but I was smiling as I hung up. Within an hour, my phone was buzzing constantly. Reporters, lawyers, former colleagues, all trying to reach the Liberty family's black sheep for the inside story. I ignored them all. Instead, I called Scarlett. "Please tell me you're watching the news," she said, her voice practically singing with satisfaction. I turned on the television to find a reporter standing outside Liberty Enterprises' downtown Denver headquarters. Behind her, I could see employees streaming out of the building, carrying boxes of personal belongings. What appears to be a systematic corporate acquisition has left the Liberty family's business empire in shambles. Sources close to the family suggest that costly management decisions and the recent departure of key technical personnel created the perfect storm for this takeover. The camera cut to a statement from Thomas Liberty, looking older than I'd ever seen him. His usual perfect silver hair was disheveled, his expensive suit wrinkled like he'd slept in it. "This is a temporary setback," he was saying, but I could see the truth in his eyes. He knew it was over. The real shock came when the reporter mentioned the acquisition price, $42 million, a fraction of what the company was worth just a week ago, but exactly what it was worth without my proprietary software and systems. Zachary tried to hold his own press conference that afternoon. I watched from my living room as my younger brother, the golden child, the heir apparent, stood behind a podium looking like he was about to be sick. "We're exploring all legal options," he announced, reading from prepared notes. "This acquisition appears to involve some form of insider trading or corporate espionage." Poor Zachary. still didn't understand that you can't steal what already belongs to you. That evening, Nika finally called. "Dorian, please." Her voice was different now. Smaller. Desperate. "We need to talk. There are things you don't understand about the divorce, about Marcus." I let her talk. She explained how Marcus had taken her name off all his loans, how he disappeared the moment news of the Liberty family's financial troubles hit the papers, how she was now facing creditors alone. "I made a mistake, a terrible mistake, but we can fix this. We can work together, like we used to." "Like we used to," I repeated, my voice calm as deep water. "When exactly was that, Nika? When you were planning your exit strategy with Marcus? Or when you were going through my personal files looking for assets to claim in the divorce?" Silence. Then, quietly, "How did you know?" "I've always known. The question is, why did you think I didn't?" More silence. "The prenup stands. The divorce will be finalized as planned. And Nika, don't call this number again." I hung up and immediately blocked her contact. Some bridges aren't worth rebuilding. But the story wasn't over. Not yet. 2 days later, Scarlett arrived with news that made everything else pale in comparison. "Your grandfather wants to see you again," she said. But there was something different in her expression. Something that looked like excitement mixed with concern. "There's another document. Something he says he couldn't show you until the acquisition was complete." That afternoon, I found myself back at Grandpa John's cabin, this time carrying a bottle of his favorite bourbon, and questions I wasn't sure I wanted answered. He was waiting with a metal strongbox I'd never seen before, the kind banks used 50 years ago. "Everything I showed you the other night, that was just the beginning. This is the real legacy I've been protecting."
Inside the box were property deeds, investment portfolios, and bank statements that made my eyes widen. Grandpa John hadn't just been successful, he'd been brilliant. Decades of careful investing, property acquisition, and business development, all hidden from the family that thought they knew his worth. $38 million in liquid assets, he said casually, as if he were discussing the weather. Another $60 million in real estate across Colorado, Wyoming, and Montana, and a controlling interest in 6 companies that your father never even knew existed. I stared at the documents, my mind reeling. "Why show me this now?" "Because it's yours," he said simply. "Always has been. You're the only one in this family who built something instead of just inheriting it. You are the only one who understood that real strength comes from character, not birthright." He pulled out one final document, a will that had been updated just 3 weeks ago. "Everything in that box becomes yours the day I pass on," he said. "But I'm not planning on going anywhere soon. What I am planning is watching you use these resources to build something better than what we had, something that honors the Liberty name instead of just trading on it." As I drove home that night, my phone rang one final time. Thomas Liberty's name appeared on the screen. I answered. "Son," his voice was hoarse, broken. "I know I don't deserve to ask, but I need to see you. There are things I should have said years ago." I looked out at the mountains, at the empire I'd built in secret, at the future stretching ahead like an open road. "I know where to find you when I'm ready." And for the first time in my life, I held all the cards. But power without purpose is just noise. What I did next would define not just my revenge, but my legacy. The question that kept me awake that night wasn't whether I'd won. I had. The question was what kind of man I'd choose to be with that victory. And that, as they say, is a whole different story.
The real question is, when life strips everything away from you, when the people you trust most show their true faces, what do you do? Do you let the betrayal destroy you, or do you use it to discover strength you never knew you had? I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Have you ever been underestimated by someone close to you? How did you prove them wrong? Share your story below. If you enjoyed this tale of silent revenge and hidden strength, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to Hidden Hearth. We share stories of family secrets, betrayals, and the power of resilience. Ring that notification bell so you never miss a twist. Until next time, remember, sometimes the quietest moves make the loudest statements.